All right, this is the time of year, P, the time of year where we got to start talking fantasy values. Now, we're a quarter of a way through the season, a little bit less than a quarter of a way through the season, but we're through week 4, and now we're approaching week 5. And this is the time now where we got to start looking at where we should value players, kind of moving off some of these off-season takes. And there's some debatable players, P, that we got to get into. The first one I want to talk about, Breece Hall. Let's talk about Breece Hall first. And this is a big question mark. He was drafted in the top 5 picks for a lot of people, a running back that a lot of people were trying to draft, man, and had high upside for. He's played well. It's not like he hasn't played well, but he's the RB13 on the season, which is kind of a disappointment for a guy we were thinking would be the RB1 or maybe a top 4 option at the running back position, depending on who you was listening to. He's had 18, 24, and 18 in the first 3 weeks, coming off of a 3-point week against Denver. Where are you at with Breece Hall, Brad? Because I feel like people are panicking a little too much right now.
Yeah, man, people are panicking on Breece Hall. But the thing is, like, the entire Jets offense is kind of off, right? Breece Hall's not eating. Wilson's not eating. Lazard, in turn, is like their leading receiver. So I think that they're going to figure some shit out. I mean, they have to, right? They have to go back to the basics. They have to go back to what they were doing in week 1, feeding Wilson, feeding Breece. They
lost in week 1, though.
I mean, they lost in week 1. But shit, man. You got Denver putting it on you, and like, what are you going to do? This is the whole thing with this team. It's weird and it's dysfunctional, but I think it's really good times to actually buy right now on these players. So Garrett Wilson has had a tough stretch, but focusing on Breece Hall here.
I think the main concern is like Braylon Allen's coming in there and like taking work away, getting goal line stuff, getting receiving work, playing like 30 to 40% of the snaps at times when like we were expecting Breece Hall, not all of us, but like the community was expecting Breece Hall to be like 80% of the touches, Braylon Allen not to be a factor. And it's like Braylon Allen's playing well when he's up in there. That's why I'm not concerned about Breece Hall, but I think it's just like I don't think I ever thought he would be like the RB1. I thought there was a chance at it, but I never thought he would be like the RB1. And it's like, I think we've got to temper the expectations a little bit. He still has that potential, like on a weekly basis, though. So I just don't get the concern, like, oh my God, I'm so worried about Breece Hall. Like the first 3 weeks of the year, he literally showed you who he was. And that's a weekly RB1. So why is it now? Do we trade Breece Hall? Are we concerned about him? I just don't understand that narrative. Like, he's an elite player. What are we expecting at this point?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, like, the community was saying, I think, and this is what happens when you talk about like rhetoric, right? People want to anoint the next person to say, this guy's going to be the next RB1. This guy's going to be next potential to have the number 1 overall fantasy player. Me personally, I've always been saying he's more closer to I've always had like Saquon over him. I've always had Bijan over him. CMC, obviously he's hurt. Always had Saquon over him. I always thought that his ceiling was going to be capped. So I think looking at him for what he is right now, he's even less than that. Right. So I think that he is a buy low opportunity. Getting back to what I was talking about when I'm talking about this team as a whole, right? You got to look at what like the situation, the head coaching staff. If they don't get it right, this is their last time on the team. They're gonna clean house. Yeah, Salah's gone if he doesn't get it right. So what they got to do, this whole Braylon Allen experiment, whatever you want to call it, I don't think it should be as prevalent. And I think when I say that they're going to get it right, they're going to go back to their play. Bro,
why not, bro? Like, why not? Because Braylon Allen he's been playing well. He earned the touches. It's not like they're just giving him this shit because he's a rookie. He literally earned the touches. He's played well in that role. So why wouldn't he earn more work? And Breece, I mean, what do you have last game? 10 carries for like 4 yards. Why hasn't he earned more work?
That's ugly,
bad, bro. Like, I just think they using both of them is not a bad idea. But like, to panic on Breece's value, we've already seen it. It was a bad game in the rain where he had his worst game of the year, and now everybody's like, oh shit, what do I do? Like, he was 18 points a game before that. It makes no sense.
Before last week. Yeah, before that's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. Where you value last game, I think is a dud. You got to throw it out. If you're the Breece owner, you got to throw it out. If you're not the Breece owner, you got to look to probably try and acquire Breece to keep that shit a fucking beam, man. You got to try to acquire Breece because Yeah, where he's getting his work the last 2 weeks, he only averaged 4 yards a carry one game this season. That was week 2. But it doesn't fucking matter because he's getting before last week, he's getting, 4 catches, 7 catches, 5 catches, not targets, right? That's where his value is. You know what I'm saying? So, fumbled the rock twice in 4 games, only lost 1 fumble. And that's probably where Braylon Allen's coming in. I mean, listen, Braylon Allen is a beast, though. He's the youngest player. He's big. He's fast. He can catch. He probably is going to be a mainstay. But listen, moving forward, I don't think that there's much room to worry about it. But check this out. Breece Hall, right? Yeah. Just when we're talking about game scripts, this offense is not like a blow them out the water offense. It's more of like a ball control offense, dink and dunk type shit. They're not going to – the game script is not going to be in their favor against Minnesota next week or this upcoming week. The game script is not going to be in their favor against Buffalo the week after that. And, they're going against Pittsburgh, and I think the game script is going to be like a defensive type battle. That's where you're going to see Breece Hall eat a lot. They're going to try to work him in, not only running the rock, but also catching the rock. I think Breece Hall is going to have a bigger day in 2 weeks from now against Pittsburgh. But in Buffalo, I think this game could get out of hand in the third quarter.
Well, you talk about RBs right now are eating against Buffalo. And that's one of the things I was going to mention here is the one thing saving grace-wise for Breece, if you can get him, is that so far right now, based on the rankings that we have, and obviously this shit changes throughout the year, but he's got 3 very fantasy-friendly matchups in the fantasy playoffs right now. You're going up against the Rams, the Jags, and the Buffalo Bills, which are all bottom 7 against running backs. Running backs are eating right now. Buffalo, surprisingly, is the best matchup right now for running backs. So, for me, I'm like, oh, shit. Sometimes that's what I'm looking ahead to is if I'm going to trade for him, when. And you talked about the tough matchup here against Minnesota. Also, then you got Pittsburgh coming up here in a couple of weeks. And it's there might be a really good time to trade for Breece Hall. It just might not be this week. But for now, if you have him, I still wouldn't panic. That's the part that I'm at. It's just I'm not panicking on it. If Braylon Allen eats a little bit, shit, he eats a little bit. But I'm not panicking on him as a top 5 to 10 running back, which I think at this point, that's another thing people do too before we get into the next player. That's a thing people do, P, that pisses me off. And it's you still hold on to these early season values. You're holding on to where you drafted them and who's ranked higher than who. When we draft players, it's not about I think this player, at least for me, it's not. I don't know if you feel the same way. It's not about, I think this player is going to finish number 1. I think he's going to finish number 2. I think he's going to finish number 3. Typically, I'm rating these guys, and they're in a similar tier of upside and floor, and the reason I have them ranked is because of that. I think one has maybe more higher upside. One has more consistent floor. One has a good risk of both. One is a little bit more of a floor play. That's how I rank players. So I think one of the big comparisons I get, Bijan and Breece Hall, that's one of the bigger ones I get. Who would you take? It was just a different combination of upside potential with Bijan and then floor, I think, with Breece Hall. And I prefer the ceiling that I thought was there with Bijan Robinson. Hasn't been there so far. It's okay because both of them, to me, are still RB1s. It's a win still.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I get that. But I mean, I know you're not completely throwing up the pre-draft ranking. You're not completely throwing them out the water. I think things normalize, after these first few weeks. And I do think that there is going to be a bounce back.
So where are you ranking Breece Hall right now? Top 5, top 10, top 12, out of your top. Where do you have him ranked rest of the season right now?
As far as running backs? I mean, I think he's top 10, But then again, I've never really had him as a lock for a top 5 running back. Coming out, I've always thought he was going to be more of a top 10 running back.
I still got him in my top 5. Tell me,
in your top 5, really?
In my top 5 still. So you got Saquon over him?
Of course.
Okay, Bijan or Breece Hall?
That's close. Okay. I'm going Bijan. I'll go Bijan.
Okay, so you got 2 backs over him right now. Alvin Kamara or Breece Hall?
I'll take Alvin. Give me Alvin.
Derrick Henry or Breece Hall?
You see, that's a good one. I'm higher on Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry's floor is 12 points any given week. He's in the touchdown.
Breece's floor was 18. We were just talking about it outside of last week. Had a bad game.
Yeah, but it's weird what they're doing. It's weird what they're doing with as a team. What are they doing? What's their identity? Can you tell me confidently what their identity is as a team?
Right now they're trying to. I can't. But right now they're trying to move the football through the ground game. They're using obviously.
They're using two backs to do that though.
Lazard. They're using Garrett Wilson. Yeah, but they're using these guys in space to try to get the ball downfield. I don't think they're looking for a whole lot of hero shots. This is a dink and dunk type of offense, and they're hoping to get the big play through their running backs. That's essentially what they're doing right now.
No, I don't know. I think
okay. So we got hold on. So right now you got Saquon, you got Bijan, you got Kamara and Derrick Henry, right? So those four over.
I think Derrick Henry's close. We'll put him on the back burner.
Okay, Kyron.
I got Kyron over him.
Joe Mixon.
No.
Jahmyr Gibbs.
I'll take Gibbs over him.
Jonathan Taylor.
Not ready to say that. No.
Achane.
No. Achane. No.
Josh Jacobs.
No.
Jordan Mason.
Look, I don't know if CMC is going to come back, but while
Breece Hall,
bruh, you got to listen. I don't look.
Right
chastise me. But listen, okay, let me ask you something. If CMC doesn't come back, who you taking the rest of the season?
Breece Hall.
Why?
No question.
Why is that no question? Why?
Is it? We just talked about an 18-point floor usage in the passing game, the run game. We haven't seen a big play from Breece Hall all season long.
You can't say like 18 yards.
You can't say a game right now. Rushing.
Nah, but you can't
seen a 100-yard game from him.
You haven't seen a 100-yard game from who?
Breece Hall.
Yeah, but you've seen nothing but 100-yard games from fucking Jordan Mason.
I'm still taking Breece Hall for the floor, just the floor of it right now for him. And
you got
like 6 running backs. I don't think you got more than that because there's no other running backs.
So I said okay. So I got Bijan, I got Saquon, Kyron, Kamara, Gibbs,
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry and him are right there. And look, give me Derrick Henry over him. So that's 6 running backs that I
got him like RB7 right now. That's wild.
Yeah. I said top 10. Yeah,
that's wild. But
that's wild to you. So okay, of those running backs, who are you taking over them? Like
I'm taking Breece over all of them except for Saquon and Bijan. That's it.
You're taking him over Kamara?
Yeah, I'm taking Breece over Kamara.
Are you? So you're taking Bijan over Kamara too?
Yeah. I'm not. I don't go off past stats. I go off of what I think future production. While I think Kamara is still there, I just also see like when Taysom Hill's healthy, they use his ass in the red zone sometimes. Like, or if that Saints offense sputters, sometimes like they had a really hot start to the year with 2 like blowout wins. You feel me? So I'm kind of dialed. I think the potential for a Bijan, the potential for a Breece Hall is higher than what it is for Alvin Kamara, especially if the Saints do go on a losing path like they did last year, and we see Kendrick Miller come in towards the end of the year. That's where I got it.
Interesting. Okay, that's an interesting way to look at it because although Taysom Hill may get that work on the goal, his 34-year-old fucking quarterback ass may get that work on the goal line. He's a hard runner. You gotta give it to him. Yeah, he did. Kamara's value is not in his touchdowns. Kamara's value is primarily catching a rock and working the 20s. If he gets a touchdown, then that's a 25-point game.
Well, how can you say that for him, but not Breece Hall? The same thing, and Breece is younger.
I don't give a shit if Breece is younger. It goes back to their identity, bruh. It goes back to the team's identity. Nobody knows what their identity. And this is part of the reason why I may be biased. Just keeping the shit G. I always think that, and you can see it a little bit in this game. I think that Aaron Rodgers himself, he's always struggled to adapt to a system. He's always like, no, I'm the system, right? In Green Bay, Matt LaFleur, he never wanted to adapt to all that pre-snap motion. He never wanted to fully adapt to that offense because that's not what he does. He's like, fuck all this motion shit. Let me go ahead and run my offense. They got rid of him, and now their team's excelling. It's funny because the same offense is here in the Jets. So I think that there's a conflict, and there was that weird, awkward thing where the coach, after the win, went to give him a hug. Aaron Rodgers pushed him off. Like, that shit is weird to me. And it always goes deeper. They explained
that, though. They was like, they was cool. They was talking about,
they explained that.
He was like, that's a 14-point, 2-score lead. That's what he said. He said 2-score lead. Like, I got you a 2-score lead. That's all.
But then there was just also things like, well, coach is not a big hugger. Okay, coach is not a big hugger, but you were the one to push him off. So what the fuck are you talking about? So it's just weird to me because that entire dynamic is just weird, right? Because they're sharing a workload. It's like a community in that backfield now. The number one wide receiver's getting treated like he's not a number one wide receiver. Granted, he's been facing good corners, but still, you got to make that shit work, bro. You got to make that shit work.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on Breece Hall, man. A lot of people are probably in this same dilemma right now. Me personally, I'm holding Breece Hall for better days, not selling him anything anywhere. So if you got Derrick Henry for Breece Hall in your inbox right now, you're accepting that?
I don't know, man. I'm really high on Derrick Henry, bro. I like Derrick.
That's crazy.
Listen, I'm saying I don't know because of this. I'm high on Derrick Henry. Breece Hall's ceiling is what it is. And, you know, we may look at this a little bit differently because you're looking at what can be and you're looking at potential. And I'm looking at, you know, what's this guy's floor and is it worth it, right? You got to factor that in. And I'm not just saying, oh, if this guy's floor is higher, I don't give a fuck about his potential because Derrick Henry has potential too. Every game, Derrick Henry could go for 16.100 yards and a touchdown. And if they sprinkle him in the catch, if he gets 2 touchdowns, which is not far-fetched, that's good, right? But at some point, it's gonna nick you in the ass if you're like, it's gonna nick you in the ass if you're like, oh, this guy has potential to be RB1. When he has shown in the past, but in this system, it makes it cloudy to actually achieve that type shit. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you, but I don't agree with you, bro. Just keeping it G. Like I think that there's different versions of upside.
And just to be clear, I wouldn't do that deal straight. You know what I mean? It's not because I think one player is better than the other. If I'm giving Breece Hall, I'm gonna ask for Derrick Henry.
Market value. Market value is different than your perceived value. Always.
Exactly. Yeah.
Another player we got to talk about, T. Higgins, is a player whose market value is in the gutter right now. Was injured to start the season. I think it's tough for people to even trust starting him right now. He played decent last week, but this isn't the T. Higgins we've come to expect. And right now he's outside of the top 85 wide receivers in PPR leagues, mostly due to the fact that he missed 2 games. But even still, he's barely over 100 yards on the season in the 2 games he's played. Hasn't caught a touchdown yet. I think a lot of people are concerned about T. Higgins, and this is a player that, I mean, last season we were viewing him as like he had the upside to be like a top 15 receiver. This year he was still drafted in the top 30, which he still has that potential to me. And coming up against a matchup against the Ravens, who have allowed sixth most yardage to quarterbacks and just in passing game in general, there's a little bit of upside here for T. Higgins, don't you think?
Oh, I love it. I mean, you got to think about his first 2 games back, right? He's just under 99 yards. He's just at 99 yards his first.
That's under 100.
That's under.
That's under. Hey, facts are facting right now.
Facts are facting right now. That ain't no lie. But what I love to see out of this, you know, and when you see a player ramping up, you look at his targets. His first game, 6 targets, right? Game 2, 10 targets. You'd love to see it. 6 catches, 60 yards. So he hasn't had a touchdown yet. I think it's coming. They seem to, I don't know how he always plays against Baltimore, but I think that I think Cincy and Baltimore always play each other kind of tough.
Yeah, it goes back and forth with Cincy. It's like sometimes we see Cincy dominate. Sometimes we see I think Baltimore's got the upper hand over the last year, but like Marlon Humphrey typically is on Jamar Chase, but they've been moving him around a little bit more this year.
Yeah, so I mean, all in all, I'm not worried too much about T. Higgins at all. You know, I think he's still gonna. I mean, if you drafted him, you got him as like your flex or what. And this is coming from me. I have him in just about every fucking league, so I'm feeling the same pain. You know what I'm saying? But hey, man, it's patience P over here, baby.
Patient P, man. Well, to be honest, I like T. Higgins a lot, man. And this is a player that I think you can get like because the name isn't there, because he's had such a slow start. He's only played in 2 games, and this is his preseason. This is his training camp. This is a lot of the stuff that T. Higgins missed. I know he had a little bit of it, obviously, with the training camp, but didn't get a chance to come into the season very strong. So you got bounce back games. You have to recover from your injury, and there is a dip in performance at times. And like, I think we got to give guys who have been in the circle of trust a little bit more time to prove themselves. And right now, the schedule for Cincy coming up is crazy. You got Baltimore, who's been bottom 10 against receivers. You have Philly in that mix, the Giants. They play Baltimore again in a few weeks, so it's like there's some hit games here for T. Higgins. Just understand he might be a little bit more of a inconsistent play, right? I think you can get good floor with like 4 to 6 catches a week, but like the big games that we've come to expect out of T. Higgins, 100 with 2 touchdowns, those are going to be a little bit more sporadic, I think, in my opinion. So I like T. Higgins, bro, and I think this is a good time to buy T. Higgins, like,
for sure.
But it could be one of those players, P, that we're like maybe just attached to. You know what I'm saying? Maybe attached to the name. I'm being honest. Like,
no, it's crazy because, like, from the perception of it, like, and I know we kind of look at the same things. We're looking at this big body wide receiver, you know what I'm saying? That's jumping up, mossing cats, catching touchdowns, coming down over 2 players, and you're like, bro, I need that on my team.
Need that.
You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, it's like T. Higgins, he still is that. If you watch the games, if you're not just stat watching, they're throwing him the rock in the end zone. You know what I mean? Like, he had a couple catches where he's been pushed out of bounds or drops in the end zone. So he's getting targeted in the end zone. So to me, still a buy low. You know what I mean? And if I have him like I do in just about every league, no, I'm not.
He said like I do in every league.
Every
league, it's crazy because it's like you find the same players, and unfortunately, it's like that's just who in fantasy. Like if you have multiple teams, you tend to like the same type of players, unfortunately. But it's like at the end of the day, like it's because they produce and they've done you well in the past. Like we saw T. Higgins last week, and it's like, you know, if you were worried about his usage, he had 32% of the team's targets last week. So it's not like he's just completely out of the picture. It's just the results haven't been there. And sometimes when the results aren't there, we start to think a little bit worse in our heads about players than they actually are. So Jamar Chase has been, you know what I mean? He's been the rock solid option, but when they've been on the field at times together, Pete, we've seen where T like will dominate in targets at times. Like he'll go through stretches where we're questioning, is Jamar Chase the one or is he the 2? Especially because Jamar Chase can do a lot more like explosive plays, right? So he gets his 80 to 100 yards. It could be on a 50-yard game, whereas T. Higgins is more kind of like turn the ball downfield, shots in the red zone, tough contested catches. So the player for me, I like T. Higgins. It's just, are we fully buying in? I would buy in right now as a top 30 guy. If I feel like if I could get top 30 price right now for T. Higgins, creeping up to the top 25 prices, I'd be willing to do it.
So you wouldn't get him for like top 20 prices?
Hell no. No, that's too much. not with the receivers that are out there right now. Like if I was thinking T. Higgins or like Jaden Reed, I'm taking Jaden Reed. If I'm thinking like T. Higgins or like maybe Higgins, like Devontae Adams, I'm still going Devontae. If I'm going Stephon Diggs, like I'm doing all.
You're still going. See, I don't know, man. Like, you know, you make some good points. I think we're probably at the same value of that. You know, T. Higgins, they played 2 different roles in that team, right? I mean, on Cincy, the reason why you and I both weren't ready to put, you know, Chase as a top 3 wide receiver or a top 2 wide receiver or the wide receiver 1 is because of T. Higgins, right? You know, we've always said Chase is not the system. There can be games where T. Higgins is is the 1B to Chase's 1A, right? They can go both ways, and I'm not ready to give that up. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I drafted him in every team because, you know, you get him so late, the value is going to be there. He had an injury season last year, but we are going to be still, I think throughout his career, we're going to be tippy-toeing on like, you know, I'm going to get this guy. There's always going to be a chance where he's going to be injured. There's always going to be a chance where he misses games. He's missed games every year, but the upside's always there.
The upside is there, and he's a player that he's a fun player to watch when he's like performing well. Outside of that, it's tough. It's tough sometimes to be a T. Higgins owner.
You're taking T. Higgins. You're taking Godwin over T. Higgins, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so you're taking him over Marvin Harrison?
No. I got Marvin over T still.
Okay, so
T. Higgins is closer to like I'm looking like George Pickens or T. Higgins, or like Michael Pittman and T. Higgins. Like I think
Michael Pittman's the
same thing. He's a proven player, big body receiver. It just hasn't performed up to expectations so far.
No, Michael, they're 2 different receivers. They may look the same, but Michael Pittman's never been a big touchdown guy. Let me ask you something. Breece Hall, let's get to it. Breece Hall and George Pickens for Derrick Henry and and T. Higgins. Who you taking?
Breece Hall and George Pickens.
It's not
close. It's not close.
Yeah,
Especially, especially the guy you mentioned, like TDs. When has T. Higgins been a big TD guy? It always looks the part, but when is he? It's same like Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's always around like 4 or 5 touchdowns, but T. Higgins always around like 5, 6 touchdowns.
Listen, T. Higgins. T.
Same
Higgins.
thing.
No, it's not the same thing. T. Higgins missed like damn near half the season. Like he missed like a quarter of the season last year. Had more touchdowns.
Facts are facts.
You know what I'm saying?
So, I'm saying he'd never been a big touchdown. Has he ever had 10 touchdowns?
He had 7. What do you have?
Has he ever had 10 touchdowns, Fee?
Has he ever had? He ain't never had 10 touchdowns, dog. Damn.
You know who else has never had 10 touchdowns? Chris Olave. Yo, Chris Olave, bro, for whatever reason. I mean, the fantasy community loves Chris Olave. The same way they have this attachment for like Deontay Johnson and some of these other like smaller receivers. I don't understand it. But Chris Olave was drafted as like a top 12 guy for whatever reason. And I know he's been like a disappointment for a lot of people. And in Clint Kubiak's offense is like, we know that he'll have opportunity. Like he hasn't been playing bad, but he's just like, I think the expectation is higher for him in a lot of circles. So when I look at Chris Olave, I see a player who's probably going to be finish the season somewhere in like the mid-tier to back end wide receiver 2 range, just like he has over the first 2 seasons of his career, right? The problem is I think there's people who view him as a higher end commodity. Do you think that me and you, like, I don't know if you feel this way about Chris Olave, but I don't really feel the upside is there for him. Are we on the same page with that? Or do you think the fantasy community is rightful and be like, oh, maybe this is a buy low player who's performed well over the last?
Well, when you're talking about like a buy low player, right? Is he going to return the value that you drafted him at? You know what I mean? Like, listen, you know, I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not as high on him as everybody else is, right? As the community is. I always thought he was overdrafted. But I do think there is some sneaky value in there. He does get targeted heavily, at least 6 and 10 the last 2 weeks. But I just think he's one of those receivers who are, and especially in that offense as it sputtered, I think he's one of those receivers who primarily works. You know, he doesn't have high touchdown upside. He doesn't have like 1,400. He doesn't have like 1,600 yard upside, 1,500 yard even. He's more of like a 12 and 6 guy, a 12 and like his upside is like his ceiling is like a 12 and 6 guy. And there's never really a way that I can see him like breaking past that and entering a new threshold, a new ceiling.
He's not getting more receptions. He's not getting more touchdowns. Maybe he gets a little bit more yardage, but like Shaheed is damn near going to do the same thing he does this year. Shaheed probably going to be like 800 to 1,000 yards and like 5 touchdowns. Yeah. It's not going to be like, I just don't see this. Like, where's the increase? Where does he get better?
I always thought he was overdrafted. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're looking at like a 13, 14 points per game type guy. And that's kind of what he is.
So over the first few weeks, right? And I think this is kind of where I'm alluding to. It's like we saw 2 targets week 1. Obviously, that was the outlier blowout game against Carolina. We saw 6 targets, and then 10 targets in a game against Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
He hasn't had a 100-yard game yet, but it looks like, I mean, at some point he's gonna hit that. But like any tough matchup right now, it feels like he's probably gonna struggle if they have a corner that can like keep up with them. And the Saints don't have to force feed him. They can go to Kamara. They can go to Shaheed. Fuck, they can use Taysom Hill at times. Like, it's just they don't have to get the ball to him. So if I have Chris Olave right now, I would be looking to ship him out. He's the wide receiver 19 on the season right now.
Right now, yep.
I'd be looking to like, where can I find somebody that maybe has a little bit more of a dip in value? Like that's a similar type of player. So if I was looking at like Olave versus maybe a Brandon Ayuk, if I could pull like an Olave for an Ayuk's type of deal off where I'm getting maybe even Ayuk in another piece, I'm pulling that shit off right now. If I can pull off Olave for like the Garrett Wilson owner right now, who's probably pissed, I'm looking at that right now. Olave for like a Devontae Adams, whoever has him in case the trade goes down, I'm pulling that shit off. Olave for one of these injured guys, your Cooper Kupps, like somebody, Tyreek Hill somehow. If you can pull off that kind of deal, that's what I'm doing. I'm using Olave for and trade him to the guy that like probably over believes in him.
Oh yeah, 100%. So, yeah, I mean, Olave is not a good guy for me. Like, I think you and I are going to be on the same page. Let me ask you this though: Are you taking Terry McLaurin over Olave?
Hell yeah. I think, but no. So the way that I view that though, when I say hell yeah, is at the cost.
Yeah,
at cost. So like I think Olave will probably finish.
No, I'm talking about who would you just rather have on your team?
Straight up in the deal, I'd rather have Olave.
Just on your team, you'd rather have Olave over.
I'd rather have Olave. Yeah. But I think like, at the value, like shit, McLaurin all day.
Yeah, McLaurin definitely has a better value. Drake London.
Oh, Drake London, no question.
No question. Okay. All right. Yeah, I know you'd rather have Marvin Harrison Jr. Devonta Smith.
I think that's where it starts to get debatable for like Chris Olave, and because I think Devonta Smith being hurt probably gives you an advantage if you're trying to make that move. But like I think getting Devonta Smith in another piece is more valuable than having Chris Olave.
But just in a vacuum.
In a vacuum, I'm taking Olave
over Devonta Smith.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
Injuries, either on a bye, like just in a vacuum right now. If you're asking me, and it's not, it's like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So if you're like, so who do you think is going to have a better rest of season?
If Devonta Smith comes back next week and is fully healthy, I probably would take him.
I mean, he only had a concussion. It's not like
but he's still got to get back on the field. Just things are how they are, bro.
Yeah, I feel you. DJ Moore or Olave.
He's only 150 pounds, bro. Devonta Smith. You never know how that shit's going to affect him. DJ Moore. I'd rather have Chris Olave with Keenan back.
I could.
It's right there, though.
It's right there.
Right there.
They're basically the same person, man. They're basically the same person. You know what I'm saying?
Small ass receivers, bro. I can't do it, man.
Can't do it. Speaking of small ass receivers who need to bounce back, Garrett Wilson or Olave.
I'm still taking Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Now, Devontae go there, we might be having a different conversation. We might be having a different conversation with Devontae.
Okay, I can rock.
What about Anthony Richardson, bro? Because I would say this is probably one of the harder people to gauge right now. And I don't know where you stand on Anthony Richardson. Me personally, like it's been frustrating to see because this is a guy advocated as like could be the QB1, right? Like you talked about this, off-season shit. Like you're trying to find the next guy that can do it. And it's like I think we saw all the elements of it, especially in week 1. Like we're like, oh shit, this is what we were looking for out of A-Rich. But like he hasn't had a good performance. And then it's like once it finally looked like, oh shit, things were about to trend in the right way. We saw the thing that scared us off last year, and that's the injuries, bro. And it's like he can't stay on the field, man. We call him the most athletic, but he's also the most brittle. Like, come on, bro. Just find a way to stay on the fucking field. But I don't know. I still believe in A-Rich. I still think he has the same ceiling and that he'll figure it out. It's just tough right now to have him and to gauge where he's at. I have him in my top 10 still. I still have him in my top 10. I'm not wanting to take him out of there. But, like, he's slowly falling down the ranks. And another 2 bad games, he would quickly exit my top 10.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think the window right now, it's so it's crazy because like if you're gonna trade for him now. But you're also taking that risk because he could still be like inconsistent, right? He could still be inaccurate. But the reason why I'm still high on him, it's tough to say high, but the reason why I still have faith in him is because I think this team will figure it out, right? Like we've seen him. It would be one thing if we didn't see how he can be a little bit more accurate, have a higher completion percentage in the limited gameplay that we've seen him play last year. Hasn't done it as much this year.
Even last week against the Steelers.
Yeah, he was.
He was looking sharp.
Yeah, he completed 3 of 4. And in turn, we see Michael Pittman benefit from that, right? He's the primary beneficiary from that. It's funny because how defenses play him is they're going to try to contain him and they're going to try to make him beat them deep, right? Because their whole game plan is like, let's run the rock and let's pepper Michael Pittman. And, we haven't seen him throw deep too much, like consistently on a consistent basis, albeit limited from last year. So I think that's how defenses were playing him this year. And now they're transitioning. They're like, okay, he can put up points. He can beat us deep. So, it's like a chess match, right? So I think that they're getting back to getting Michael Pittman involved and then playing like, going a little bit more towards that type of game. But then you
But it's like
factor the fact that he gets hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt with the hip and everything too, and it's like that's the part. And then he, for whatever reason, their dumbasses decided to bring him back in after the injury in first play. It's a design QB run. It makes zero sense. What the hell these coaches are doing? Like, I get it, he's an athletic player, but why would you do that? To me, I think the upside is just too like. When you talk about that window, P, the window is so wide because the range of outcomes is like a top 5 quarterback or like outside of the top 12 quarterback, outside of the top 15 quarterback if he's playing like he was the previous 2 weeks. So I try to bet on the player and the circumstance. We also know Josh Downs is out for this team. So getting an additional weapon, I think, will open things up in the passing game. I'm not calling Josh Downs like this elite receiver, but I think adding another piece that's not just a downfield guy, like seems like A.D. Mitchell's kind of more of a downfield guy. Alec Pierce is more of a downfield guy. You can use Josh Downs in a little bit more in the intermediate range, open things up for this offense. So I think Anthony Richardson will get back. And like you mentioned, I think if there was a window to buy Anthony Richardson at his absolute lowest, this is the time to do it because you can use some of these other quarterbacks and maybe another upside piece to go get A-Rich.
Yeah, I think I seen that yesterday. So
let me ask you. All right, so players, comparable players. You taking Anthony Richardson or you taking Dak?
I'm taking Dak.
You taking Anthony Richardson or Jordan Love?
I think I'll take. That's close. That's close. I got him right there. I think the risk is just significantly higher for A-Rich, but the upside is also, I'm taking A-Rich. I'll take A-Rich.
I got Jordan Love there. I'm with you on Dak. I got Jordan Love a little bit higher too. I think I mean Jordan Love.
He's nice, bro. He's nice, bro. Like Jordan Love is like Jordan Love and Dak, because I think Dak's gonna get it going.
They're like the same to me, Dak and Jordan.
That's
Love.
what
it's
I'm
like
saying.
When they're on, they're fucking on.
Yeah.
All right, who'd you rather have, Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud?
Anthony Richardson.
I'm there with you. Damn, we there to CJ
we
Stroud.
Right there,
that's
bro.
another player we gotta talk about soon, man. A-Rich or Purdy?
I gotta go Purdy, and the reason why I'm gonna go Purdy is this:
because you a homer.
No, it's not just because I'm a homer. It's not just because I'm a homer. Because you can see with Purdy, listen, bro, with Purdy, it not only you got to factor in a few things. His playoff schedule's fucking phenomenal, right? So I think he's going to pay off a lot later for you when it matters. But the lack of CMC, you can see that they're pushing it downfield. All of their wide receivers and tight ends are getting more involved. So he's become more of, and he was never really like a check down merchant like everybody wants to label him as, but there was always that safety blanket that he could dump it off there. But you can see him pushing it downfield, which is going to bode well for him. So give me Purdy. I like Purdy. I just like it. I like Purdy because his offense is a lot more powerful.
What about Baker?
I'll take him over Baker.
What about Justin Fields?
Ooh, the thing about Justin Fields, bro, like I like what they're doing with Justin Fields. It's just that looming thing. Like if Justin Fields fucks up, then then Russ is right there looking over his shoulder.
Russ this is Justin Fields. I think this is make or break week for Justin Fields, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought we said that last week, but like it could be.
They lost, and that's why I think we're looking at it as like an option. So you got A-Rich probably outside your top 10, then that's crazy.
I wouldn't say A-Rich is outside of my top 10.
I mean, you got Allen, Hurts, Lamar, Daniels, Kyler. You said Dak, Purdy. So maybe Mahomes. So he's like right there for you. Maybe
he's still within my top 10. Yeah, I still have him in my top 10.
Justin Fields. Yeah, so
you keep pushing this Justin Fields agenda, bro.
Well, you said I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I would, just to be clear, I would have Anthony Richardson over Justin Fields. If Russell Wilson wasn't looking over Justin Fields' shoulder, then it's a conversation.
Yeah, A-Rich is better than Justin Fields.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah.
All right, couple more. Let's get into Brandon Ayuk, bro. No. I want one more thing with Anthony Richardson before we get into Brandon Ayuk.
Let's cut.
What do you think will happen? I'm gonna give you mine, and I want you to give me yours. All right.
We
have one of two, and I need to put a percentage on both. Finishes top 5 for the rest of the season, outside of the top 15 for the rest of the season. Percentage that you think that happens. I would go with 55% Top 5, 45%. Outside the top 15.
That's crazy. I say it's crazy, but I'm not too far off. But I'm more leaning. I'm leaning. I'm leaning because listen, it comes in ebbs and flows, like the waves and how these teams play each other, and defensive matchups. Whereas offensive makes a different move. I'm leaning more 60% top 5 and 40%. So I'm a little bit more high on him.
He's the quarterback 20 right now, which is insane to say about a guy we're taking top 5. All right, moving on to Brandon Ayuk, bro. Brandon Ayuk. Now, for a guy that's been like top 15 pretty much for the last, 3 seasons now? He's been a top 15 type player. Obviously got the bag, got paid as a top 10 guy. We have not seen that this season at all, bro. At all. All we've seen is a bunch of drops, and, it just does not look like the Brandon Ayuk that we drafted. He's been under 50 yards in every single game. We knew that there was going to be a ramp-up period, especially coming off of no training camp, the holdout. But this is bad, bro. This is bad. And it's not like he had targets against the Rams, just did not perform. I don't know, man. I really like Brandon Ayuk, and I think this is a really good opportunity to buy Brandon Ayuk, especially with Debo and Kittle coming back. And the Niners are really good about – I've noticed this about the 49ers. Whenever things seem as bleak as possible with the elite guys, whether it's Debo, it's Kittle, CMC always gets his. But whenever it seems like, oh, shit, man, are they part of the offense? A mega game happens. And I think Brandon Ayuk is due here very soon for a mega game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. If, like I said, if you're just stat watching, you're going to think that Brandon Ayuk is fucking terrible. Right. Had over 40 games, we'll say that, over 40 yards each of the last 3 games. First game coming back, got matched up against Sauce. Obviously coming off of a holdout or a hold in, whatever the hell you want to call it. He's still getting targets and in the red zone, right? He's still getting targets in the end zone, albeit he's not coming down with them. It hasn't came down with them yet. In each of these games, it looks like he's been targeted in the end zone. He's going to start coming down with those. So perfect time, in my opinion, to buy on him. It doesn't look good now, but like I said, the numbers are what they are, but the actual games, if you're watching them, you'll see the true Brandon Ayuk, and you can see it coming a little bit more and more to fruition. Juwan Jennings has been involved a little bit more than I like, right? Even this last week, he was the leading receiver. They're going downfield with Juwan Jennings. He's proven to be like look, throw me the ball. I'm going up against their weakest corner, and I'm 6'5" or whatever he is. You know what I'm saying? Just I'll go up and go get it. But the fact also, no CMC, I think, does bode well for this entire receiving core, including Brandon Ayuk. I just don't think that it is he's not the clear cut.
He's a wide receiver too. You still think he's a top 15 wide, a high end wide receiver too? Or are you tearing him down now because of Juwan Jennings' emergence?
No, I still think he's a high end wide receiver too. A few scary notes, right? Not just Juwan Jennings, but we also got Ricky Pearsall coming back, right? So he's going to be – he's going to –
They say it's 50.
Hey, man, I don't know.
Ricky Pearsall, man, he got shot 9 times and back in the building.
Bruh, I don't know how you can get shot in the heart and live and expect not to get some target share. Hey, bruh, he's been catching him in his chest all off season. But you know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna tell you like this, bruh. I think that I still have him as the top. I still have him as a top wide receiver, top high end wide receiver too, top 15.
I mean, the snaps are back. When he first came back, he was limited, right? Like Ayuk was. They were trying to limit his workload, but it's he's back now. The drops have happened, and you hate to be like, oh, if this didn't happen, then this would happen. But we're a couple drops away from talking about Brandon Ayuk being okay, he's normally who he is, just a little bit off. So in a bounce back game, I've seen suggestions to bench Brandon Ayuk. We are not benching Brandon Ayuk in a week where there's a lot of people on buys. Do not bench Brandon Ayuk. And yes, you can be disappointed with his subpar performance, but we know who Brandon Ayuk is. And normally he's one of the most consistent wide receivers that there is. He offers a 10-point floor on most weeks. So don't be scared of Brandon Ayuk. And if anybody is scared or you see him on a bench, like this is what I do as like kind of a sneaky thing. I will look at people's starting lineups, P, and I'll be like, are they benching a guy that I like? That means they're scared of starting him. Yeah. So I'm hunting. If I see Brandon Ayuk on a bench, I'm throwing a low ball offer their way, trying to get him this week.
Yeah. And another little tip for y'all, another little sneaking tip for y'all. If you're throwing somebody you're not really that high on and you're throwing them in an offer, while that offer's up, throw that person in your starting lineup so they can be like, oh, this person may know something that I don't know. Mm-hmm. So the reverse is true as well. But yeah, efficient is Brandon Ayuk's fucking middle name, and he's gonna get back to that. He didn't just forget how to play football. So get him get it while he's hot.
You got to get him while he's hot. But listen, so before we get off of Brandon Ayuk, so moving forward, you treat him as a high-end wide receiver too, or you think that he is now wide receiver 3 land for the rest of the year?
No, he's wide receiver. Yeah, no, he's wide receiver 2. You know, I mean, he's not going to be a wide receiver 3, bro. This offense is too high power. They have an actual role for him, right? It's not just like dink and dunk. It's not like this offense. This offense honestly goes as well as Brandon Ayuk goes. We're putting up points right now, albeit against lesser competition, but. As effective as this team is with Brandon Ayuk, right? So that just opens up a new dynamic. That consistency going over the middle, that consistency in that route running where he's open. One of the things, if we're talking about deep stats, is his separation has been trash. And so once you start to see his actual routes being ran and it's like creating separation based off his routes, that's when you're going to see the true Brandon Ayuk.
He's being a diva, though. Like, it's kind of, one of the concerns I have is he's kind of being a diva, like in practice and stuff. So I don't know if this is still like frustration, but I thought he got the number that he wanted. Like, that's the one thing I don't understand with Ayuk is like, what's going on with him mentally? Like, is he just not there? He didn't want to be on the team. He just got the bag to start the season. Like, I don't know. I can't really figure that dynamic out. But when I look at the players that I'm thinking like, all right, if I view him as a mid-tier wide receiver 2 still with elite upside, like, who am I taking him over? Am I taking Adams over him? Like Devontae Adams over Brandon Ayuk? I don't think I am. Am I taking a Jaden Reed over Brandon Ayuk? I would think I'd rather have Ayuk in that instance. It's like I still haven't fully committed to the idea that, like, Brandon Ayuk should be tiered down because I still think the production is there. Like, are you taking Brandon Ayuk or are you taking Chris Olave?
Brandon Ayuk.
You taking Brandon Ayuk or Garrett Wilson?
That's good. That's a good one. I think I still would rank. I think Garrett Wilson bounces back, so I would still probably take Garrett Wilson over Brandon.
They're right there neck and
neck. They're like, yeah, exactly.
You got Brandon Ayuk or Drake London?
I would take Drake London over Brandon Ayuk.
You got Brandon Ayuk or Marvin Harrison?
I listen. I think that's where it is with me right there, right? Because I know I've been, early in the preseason, I've been hating on Marvin Harrison.
You're lower on Marvin Harrison, aren't you?
No, I've come up to where I could see it now, right? Because he's the primary target through the air. He's a big body guy. They target him in the red zone.
He's had a great 2 quarters this season.
Bro, he's the last 3 games he's had touchdowns. Like, you know what I mean? Like the last 3 games he's had touchdowns. Yeah. He hasn't like had. I'm still going to take Brandon Ayuk.
I would take Harrison. I think Harrison's better.
You think Harrison's better?
I see the upside too. But I'd rather have Harrison's upside.
Yeah, you know what?
He's probably Harrison's closer to closer to I think he's more of a back end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. And I think Ayuk's more like mid tier wide receiver 2 right now.
Yeah, I think what? I think you're probably right on that. That's just a niner of me talking about. Am I going to take a Cardinal? But like the thing is, like, you said it right. We've seen a glimpse from Marvin Harrison. We've seen a glimpse of him, like what he can do. And if you watch the game, it's like there was a broken play for a long touchdown. There was another play for a touchdown, but where I'm looking at is like that. There's this one catch on the sideline against Tre'Davious White where it's like, oh, this guy looks like a professional. You know what I mean? Not just looking like a professional, but the fact that he is a big ass body to like box out and make that catch like tightroping on the sideline. I was like, okay, shit, he got it. You know what I mean? Like he got it.
You talking about big bodies, and one of the stars of the early part of the season is Nico Collins, my man. Nico
Big
Collins.
dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one I got to eat crow on, bro, because I was like, yo, why are we taking Nico Collins over Diggs? And Nico is him, bro. Like, he's the guy on this team. I think it's easy to see. Now, Diggs does have a role in this team. I'm not saying that. And if you have Stephon Diggs, I think he's still going to be a wide receiver too, at least moving forward. He has upside. But Nico is the clear alpha in this thing and leading. I want to say he's the number one receiver in fantasy right now.
Yeah, he is.
But how do you view this? Do you think that he's like clearly taken over and is the guy right now? Because I think a lot of people are like, there's not a single player I would trade for Nico Collins right now. Like there's a lot of people who view him as the number one, number two, number three wide receiver in all of fantasy. And I don't know if I could get there. Like Nico is him, but like I also do see Tank Dell, Diggs, Joe Mixon, who's been out, having their moments in this offense at times throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have their moments, but I don't think it's going to come to the expense of Nico Collins. But Nico Collins being the number one on this team, you know, you're welcome, because I've been saying that all off season, right? But as far as I'll show you, it's on your page, bro. It's on your page, dog. You know what I mean? I'll send you the video.
Pull it up. Why you have to say that, though?
I got the receipts. Yeah. But listen, I always thought that Nico was going to be that dude. You know, when they're talking about, because Diggs is who he is, right? Diggs is like, you know, he's getting a little longer in the tooth. He's going to be working the middle. And I always thought that Diggs is going to be more at the expense of Dalton Schultz, their tight end, right? He's going to replace that. And that's kind of what he is, right? Tank Dell will be a factor, but he's going to be inconsistent to a point where you're not going to want him on your team, because when you bench him, he's going to go off. When he's there, he's not going to do shit. But Nico Collins' role has always been, when you need a first down, I'm him. You know, when you need a deep bomb, I'm him. You know, when you need something in the red zone, I'm him. He's going to be getting those looks. And he's fast. He's just the alpha body. The reason why I won't put him in my top 5 now is because Nico Collins' injury history is something you always have to consider, bro.
Boom, boom.
I don't think he's ever played a full season. And, you know, with as much hits that you see he's taken, with as much damage that, you know, it's just hard to see him and be like, you know, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I think the thing about him is that he's definitely going to get the yardage, whereas I think Diggs is probably going to be the touchdown guy. So it's easy. I mean, obviously leading the league in yardage right now. It's either him or Neighbors is leading the league in yardage. But I know
he is.
He's leading the league. Yeah, I thought it was either him and then Neighbors is the number one receiver then, right? I knew one of them.
Yeah, Neighbors got some by legitimately like 0.8, 0.7 points.
Oh, yeah. So essentially they're both at the top. But it's like the one thing I love about Nico is that he is going to take chances downfield, and that Stroud trusts him downfield in those situations. And we saw him pepper with 15 targets last game. So like I like Nico Collins a lot. But the fact that like Diggs is on the team, and Diggs himself is the top 10 receiver right now, like the fact that like those two are still there and that teams may end up like saying, hey, we want Diggs to beat us, we want Dell to beat us, or that the team might say, hey, look, we got to utilize Joe Mixon a little bit more, does slightly give me pause of putting him in the top 5 clearly. Like when I think about the top 5 guys, I'm thinking CeeDee Lamb. I'd rather have CeeDee Lamb over him.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Justin Jefferson over him.
Yeah.
I'd rather have St. Brown over him.
Oh, yeah.
I'd rather have Jamar Chase over him.
Okay, yeah.
And I think I'd rather have A.J. Brown over him still, too.
I would, too. Yeah,
it's like that's kind of where the tier break is for me. And I think those are the guys where, like, I've come up a lot on Nico Collins. I just don't know anybody else, like the Tyreek with Tua, I would put over him.
Yeah, you know? Me too. Yeah.
Cooper Kupp, when he's playing, I'd probably put him over him.
I don't think I would.
Even when healthy?
I think that's where even when healthy, I think that's where it stops. Because the biggest concern for me, and you know, one of the things is Malik Neighbors, he is the number 1 wide receiver because what?
The volume.
The volume, right? The Malik Neighbors is leading the league in receptions at 35 receptions. Nico's only
he's on a historic pace for targets.
But Nico's only 5 receptions behind him. And Nico has over 100 more yards than him. You know what I'm saying? So it's those 5 targets and 1 more touchdown. Damn, you see Nico's 52 targets on the year, and
Cooper Kupp,
Malik
about Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was on that pace too before his injury, and you talked about Nico's injury pass, like that's still in there. You feel me? That's why I think Cooper Kupp and Nico is actually a really good like tier. That's like
I think that they're there, but the thing is, like Cooper Kupp is, but Cooper Kupp's targets have been crazy, but I think his touchdowns aren't as bad either. But like Cooper Kupp is going to be there, but with Cooper Kupp and a healthy Puka, when they're both in there, is he really going to be targeted that healthy, or is it going to be something where like Puka is the Stephon or Cooper Kupp is the Stephon Diggs to Puka's Nico, right? Is that going to be how it is, right? And then in that case, which one would you rather have?
Yeah, you got to see when they're both healthy. I think we haven't seen both of them healthy. Puka was injured. Cooper Kupp got hurt. So that's a tough one. But Nico, it's like I look at him now as I had to do it, and he's still definitely a wide receiver one. It's just I don't know that I'm willing to put him over any of those top 5 guys quite yet. That's where I'm at with Nico. And he's right now, you can probably get, I think if you were hunting right now, you could get AJ Brown in another piece for Nico, or you might be able to get Cooper Kupp in another piece for Nico, or Tyreek Hill in another piece. And when I say another piece, it's not always a small piece. You might be able to get like another starting caliber player. That's a tough move to make, but I think it's the savvy move. Like when we talk about, high level moves in your more competitive leagues, I would say like your casual leagues, you don't have to worry about deals like that. But in your more competitive leagues, this is how you get ahead. This is how you kind of got to take like a market L in order to win your league, in order to get the value for later on. At least that's what I've found.
So explain that a little bit more when you say market L, market value, because I think that's gonna help a lot of people out.
Yeah. So when I talk about market value L, it's like on paper, people are gonna be like, why would you do that for Nico Collins? He's the number 2 receiver right now. Cooper Kupp is hurt. Why would you want a player like that? Tyreek Hill doesn't have a quarterback. Why would you do that? But in fantasy and in football, a lot of times things tend to even out. There's rarely do we see those seasons when you have a 2,000-yard season from Calvin Johnson. You have a 2,000-yard season from Chris Johnson. Those are rarities. Most of the time what we see is great stretches of games. We talk about like C.J. Stroud last year in the middle of the season. He had those like back-to-back 35-point games. DJ Moore at one point had like a really nice stretch of games. Players go through times when they go through stretches of games and their market value then it's at its highest. It's just like a stock. There's times when the stock runs really high. That's when you want to sell. And there's other times when the stock runs low, it becomes risky. But if you're going to take a risk, do it on a blue chip type stock. When I'm talking about guys like Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, guys that we have proven to be top 5 commodities at their range. So always, if you can find a time to trade at the highest market value, which Nico Collins is right now, Malik Neighbors belongs in there as well. You trade at the highest market value for a player that's probably very similar. Maybe you can call him better or worse. I don't care. But a similar value that's at a much lower market value, that's a dub.
That's a dub. You got to treat these teams. Drop game on them, because I'm telling you when I say this, man, you want to, I always say this, don't fall in love with these players, man. Always try to cash in on their value for actual value. And even if Nico still performs as like a top 5 wide receiver, you still got another top 5 or the same tier of a player and a little something else. So you're cashing in on that value. So for sure, man, I'm trying to break that down for some of the people in my comments and trying to, my followers and whatnot. So I actually did a deal.
About losing that production. They're so worried about like, oh no, I have Nico. He's the wide receiver too, and I'm going to trade him away. I can't trade him away. I need to win right now. Like that's the general consensus in fantasy. And sorry if you got offended by that, but that's a little bit of the panic that comes with most fantasy players who don't see the long game. And a long game
is that right there. I'm telling you that logic right there, if you actually take that and you apply it to your fantasy leagues right here, that's going to take you from being, I don't want to call you a casual to offend anybody, but that's going to take you from being a basic or a novice fantasy player. And you're going to start to see your fantasy, you win significantly more in your fantasy leagues. And that's what gives you the edge over 90% of these other players you're playing with. So
you got to be willing to take an L too. Like sometimes it doesn't work out. But the good part is if you trade for that, typically you're going to get value that's somewhat similar. Like, say, for instance, we're talking this Nico Cooper Cup deal, and Cooper Cup comes back and he gets hurt. The thing is, you also got another player, and that player, Nico Collins, still does have risk as well. So it's like you're still getting back equal market value in that same deal, even if you come down a little bit on the receiver. So I think that's where you can find a win. And sometimes, shit, you win the deal. Sometimes you lose the deal. But there's not always perfect time to get value. And I think when you have that opportunity, you got to take advantage of that. Because if we were talking in week 2 and I was like, yo, Cooper Cup for Nico Collins, you'd have been like, what? What? So
you got to lose. Sometimes you got to lose a deal to win the league, baby. Lose a deal to win the league, man.
Listen, that was the player values for today. We'll come back with more player values, more player talk. Y'all make sure to follow the page. We'll see y'all soon.